Hello.
Hi.
You are early, which is
Cleaning
super
off.
lovely.
I'm just cleaning off the counter behind me, so it's not too messy.
Oh, that's good. I know that feeling. A bit messy above me too today, actually.
Yeah, my file folders and stuff. Okay. Now I should just have a copy. Okay, I'm good. I'm ready.
Good, good. Yeah, we start in about 15 minutes,
Okay.
but very happy to talk through well, first of all, any questions, and I'm happy to introduce you a bit more to the community if you like. If you
Okay.
have anything you'd like to know.
Well, it seems like you got to me through Barbara Tversky, or was that the connection or?
I think actually it was Fabienne Beneteau.
Uh-huh.
But Barbara saw the invitation and she said, "Oh my God, it's Andrea. She was my student. Wow." So she's desperately busy today, but she said she'd really like to come if she can. So she hopes to pop.
Yeah. She
Yeah,
said she told me too, she's in the middle of traveling somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where. So,
she's always in the middle of
um,
traveling somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. So, okay. So it looked like I went through the email list. I was like, who are these people? It seems like they're mostly like HCI computer design type people, or what's the overall purpose?
I
I was
think
trying to
that,
understand. It's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, so maybe you could explain to me what brings you all together a little bit.
oh, I have to open the door. 1 second, and then I'll happily
Okay, sure.
answer that question.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be upstairs. No, in here, you go upstairs. Oh, sorry about that. Oops. Okay, I'm just going to invite one more person actually.
Okay.
He is not able to join us very often. So he's since you asked that question, I think, boom, just copy and pasting a text message, boom, Swedish guy. Very bizarre, very good guy. Like, well, that basically covers the community. They are definitely a colorful bunch. Yeah, we have people from different companies. We have Fabian from the European Union. We have somebody from Apple. We have lawyers, programmers, academics, that kind of people.
Okay.
Our
Interesting.
our shared interest is the future of text, but not just typography kind of things, more like how can text really help the way we think and communicate. So
Mhm.
as opposed to artificial intelligence, which we embrace, we're more interested in
Uh-huh.
augmenting our intelligence.
Right. I saw that. I really like that idea of augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence. I noticed that. Okay. Then my other question is, do you think people will have pencil and paper? Well, Fabian said 1 hour, and then all of a sudden it became 2 hours. So I was really happy about that, in that we might be able to do some really short drawing exercises. So people can just use whatever they have available.
I'm going to plug my digital pencil in now that you've said that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this full session is 2 hours, and we tend
Mhm.
to spend quite a good amount of that in dialogue.
Okay.
So,
That's exciting.
how long do you want to present for?
I think my slides are about 40 minutes, something like that, 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then I can make it shorter, whatever. And then I'd like to maybe spend an additional 5 minutes at the beginning and maybe 5 minutes at the end, doing a quick a really quick drawing exercise, if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. And I'm sort of looking like, what do I have?
So something's beeping. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Right. Sorry about that.
Okay, so if I could could do 40 minutes with like 5 minutes at the beginning and 5 minutes at the end, just for people to engage in a quick drawing thing. How many people do you expect? How many people usually show up?
There is no usually. It really varies.
Okay.
But there won't be many people. These are very dedicated people. I would guess between 5 and 10, sometimes more. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I try to keep it low because, I do a transcript and put it in our journal and then in our book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I find that if we have too many people, then it becomes very bitty.
Okay.
So we'll see how it goes. The
Oh, that's
video
cool.
looks really weird. Let me just look at my preferences.
Should I just try sharing my screen also? Just to make sure that works okay. I mean, it usually does.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a crocodile.
Yeah, but let me just. Okay, great. This is great. Okay, so I have presenter view.
Hang on, you're a Mac and you're using PowerPoint? Oh gosh.
That's what it's.
You are forgiven.
It's just what is. I have a school computer. This is what they give me. This is what I use. I don't pay for stuff.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Of course it is. Yeah, this looks totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a message at the bottom of the screen.
Oh God.
No, it doesn't. It
More
was
out.
really small, so.
Yeah, no, I just shifted it to my other screen. So it's I have poorly maintained school computer. I have a poorly maintained school computer, so it's sending me messages and whatever.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Just a few little admin things to get through here.
Okay.
So you're in, let me guess. Hang on, I'm supposed to be able to guess by the background.
I'm in my office.
I know you're on the East Coast, right?
Yeah. Yeah. By the light, you mean? That's how you're supposed to be able to guess.
That was a funny Norwegian quiz thing once. They showed a blue picture and asked people to locate it. Yeah, no, New York State?
Yeah. A
I-
little like 2 hours north of the city.
Oh, okay. That would be, yeah.
Hudson Valley.
Okay, great. I did actually study at Syracuse and drove down to the city often. So
Oh, okay.
we either went,
I saw that. Yeah, I looked you up. I saw that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was basically two ways to get to the city, and that was one of them. That was the scenic route. The New Jersey, not as much,
Right.
of course. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I can take a bus or a train, and I usually take the train because it goes right along the river. It's really pretty.
Oh, all the way down to the city?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. That's so bizarre. My software just got 2 new reviews on the App Store.
Huh.
So never anything to complain about. So that's nice. We're going through some updates now. We're going to be adding AI to it as well. And I have, well, since you so kindly looked me up, I have 2 pieces of software, mainly Reader and Author.
Uh-huh.
And I'm doing a PhD now, and my advisor, well, the one who started, she's no longer my advisor. She is also one of the bosses at ACM, the Association of Computing Machinery.
Uh-huh.
So they sent out an email this week saying they're not going to be accepting any augmented, rather, excuse me, AI written in. What is buzzing? Oh, we are buzzing. It's telling me we need to be in the meeting, so that's convenient.
Okay.
Something else is buzzing. Sorry. How many devices are there? Okay. Yeah, sorry, that was weird. Anyway, they sent a message saying that no AI written, even paragraphs or sentences are allowed in ACM papers. And I found that a bit provocative, being a text person. For the last, well, for my entire life, I've ignored VR and AI. But because we have some people in the community with VR, last year we spent a lot of time on text and VR, which was fun. So now we're looking at text and AI. So this provocation really helped. You know, when you're reading, there's nothing wrong with using AI tools to help you deal with large corpuses of text, right? So why should it be the other way when you're writing? Of course, if it just writes for you, it has no value for anyone. But it was such a blanket statement, you know what I mean? That we're looking into. And it's become really interesting because if you want a student to cheat, my software is generally towards students. That's not so difficult. You just put ChatGPT in there. But if you want to build a system that helps them think, much more interesting to design.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's interesting to me, like, so I'm teaching, you know, I'm interested in drawing, that's my whole thing, but I noticed that people are using like Mid-Journey to generate ideas and then drawing from the AI images, which is interesting, which gives them, you know, the drawings look really great, but they're done by hand, but they're sort of inspired by AI, which is interesting.
Yeah, when I was at Syracuse many years ago, I did all kinds of computer graphic stuff, and I did it experimentally, like painting, doing this and that. And I had a really good professor who had somebody from Pixar come and do a presentation to us. And then afterwards, he looked at some of the student work, and he looked at my work and he said, "It looks very nice, but how much control do you have?" And I realized, okay, you shot me down. Maybe as artistic stuff, yes, but I couldn't be able to change something to fit in a movie. So when you're talking about Mid-Journey and these other things, yes, it can do incredible stuff, but how much control, even with prompt engineering, does the artist have? Sometimes you don't need a lot of control. Other times, of course, you do. So
Right.
it is most definitely a different kind of thinking while drawing, right?
Right. I mean, sometimes I'll just use like a 3D mod, like if I'm trying to picture a 3D scene, and I'll just do a really simple geometric 3D modeling of something, an object or something, to look at it from different angles, and then we'll draw it, you know. And sometimes I make it out of clay, and sometimes I might, you know, make it out of paper, and sometimes I might, like, is there a difference if I want to sort of get a 3D model of something that I can turn around and manipulate?
Yeah, that's hi guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, I mean, exactly. Before you used to have, well, some people the wooden mannequins to do the drawings.
Right.
So of course, having using different things for different aspects is, of course, just a very good idea. I have some people contacting here. I'm just going to reply.
Okay.
We are back in phase on the two sides of the pond now.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I'm not an hour early. This is good.
You are correct. So, Peter, you're in the city, right? In New York.
No, an hour north of the city,
Oh, where are you?
in Westchester.
I'm in New Paltz, so not that far. Another hour.
Boom, one message gone.
Ici, je pensais avoir une écharpe. Bon, ben, visiblement pas.
I have a feeling you're not talking to us.
Ben,
And I have the mute control. So useful. So, oh yeah, I just wanted to mention, I just got myself a new iPhone today. It's the 14 and partly for the LiDAR. So if you see me moving it about, I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to scan the scene, including your presentation. So I thought it was worth, until you think I'm trying to get a signal for Facebook or something. So might do that later. Okay, we are bang on the dot, so we will give people another few minutes to filter in. There is one announcement that I want to give you guys. I'm just going to read it from the email that I will be sending you. So for the record, and for those of you who are here, actually just wait, Fabian is here, Mark is here.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Yeah, this is so good. Andrea has already asked who has pencils. Anybody have pencils? Fantastic. Yeah, so Andrea, particularly to you, I think I've mentioned it to most of the other people here so far. In about 3 weeks, we're planning to have a special symposium on reinventing academic communication. I think I have your email address now. Would you like me to email you when things in the community are coming up? Because that would not be difficult. Huh. I saw your message there, Fabian.
Yeah, great. So people still have pencils on their desks. That's awesome.
Pencils and pens. And weird VR ones too.
So Fabian, what am I saying? Randall is not joining us. He's sick in bed. So he says he'll be watching the video. So we can talk freely about him as much as we like. Maybe that's not a good idea. Once we're at 5 past, let's do a quick introduction of people, I think. See, there's a chat there. Actually, let's start so we don't spend too much time. I'm going to start with the 3 most regulars, so you can do your introductions. On my screen, that will be you first, Peter.
Okay, I'm an attorney, programmer hybrid, and an independent scholar. Primary interest, university futures.
You have to be more brief next time, Peter. Okay, Mark.
Hi, I'm an ex-alumnus of the same doctoral college as Freud. I'm basically a hypertext researcher and a visiting fellow at Southampton University now.
Show off. In other words, he graduated. Fabien.
Yes, so my name is Fabien Benetou. I'm based here in beautiful Brussels, Belgium. I'm a prototypist, so I make strange but hopefully interesting pieces of software, mostly for the European Parliament and mostly in virtual and augmented reality.
Andrea, have you been doing anything in VR or AR? Oh, you're muted, sorry.
I teach a kind of experimental digital class, and they experiment with it. So I'm sort of the ignorant schoolmaster that kind of watches what they do. So
That
in
is the
terms of
best-
VR.
That's the best description of a good teacher I've ever heard. The ignorant schoolmaster who watches what to do. That's perfect. Bob Horn, are you there? Bob.
Yeah, yes.
And
Hi.
video too. Excellent.
Hi, I'm Bob Horn. Relevant to this discussion, I wrote a book 20 years ago on how you put what the grammar, syntax, and semantics and pragmatics of putting words and images tightly together to create meaning. Book is called Visual Language.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here, Bob. Jim.
Yes,
Hello.
just summarize himself.
Yes, please. And thank you for moving your medical appointment around so you could join us today. I'm very grateful.
I'm Jim Strayhorn in Menlo Park, California, near San Francisco. I'm an architect by training, though I've never practiced, so I'm especially interested, Barbara, in hearing what you have to say. I've been reading your book scanning your book over the weekend. So I appreciate getting the news ahead of time. I'm retired, but I'm very interested in graphics generally, and especially in Bob Horn type graphics, where he basically talks about platforms for thought. You're in a sense doing the same thing. Enough said.
Thank you. And we have a few left. David.
Hi there. My name is David Benjamin. I live in Tulum, Mexico. I'm really interested in how we can use the web and the digital world to accelerate collaboration. I'm a big fan of Douglas Engelbart and his work, and looking to see how we can support the shift from personal computing to collective computing.
Wonderful. Dina.
Morning. I'm in the process of designing the explanatory drawings for my next book, which is due in a few weeks. So I was very interested in trying to see other ways of doing things. So thank you.
Oh, good timing. Stephanie
my next
just joined
book
us.
is,
Oh, sorry. Please continue.
Sorry. My next book is Self-Care and World Care in Uncertain Times. It explains decision-making under deep uncertainty for your life and communities.
Perfect. Do you want to put, you said next book, not current, but do you mind writing that down in the chat as well?
Sure, I'll put it in. It's almost ready.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
And Stephanie.
Just listening.
Just listening. Can you do it 5-second intro?
I'm in New York.
So many New Yorkers today, but that's okay. And Candide, are you there?
It's muted.
We need some AI lip sync going on here to understand you.
Sorry. I am also from Brussels. I'm a friend of Fabien's, and I'm a full stack developer, but also very interested in PPMs. And I'm the author of a social plugin for Obsidian that allows collaboration in many ways. That's it for me.
Very good, thank you. And Jerry.
Hello, my name is Juri Elas. I'm in Budapest since COVID, and I discovered Engelbart about a decade ago, and Future of Text I presented in 2017, and been a great follower and believer in all these things. And I'm really who were trying for the impossible to recreate exactly what Engelbart and Ted Nelson and Alan Kay and everybody has been dreaming about all these years. And I think it's possible. As a Hungarian, my eyes lit up when I hear impossible task, because the point is that it's a finite thinking that deems it impossible. So with a little bit of time, it may turn out to be possible. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Andrea, you asked before everyone joined to know more about the community, and I think Jerry summarized our community very well, both for himself and for us in general. So thank you, Jerry. And yeah, I'm sure somebody will filter in, but that's up to them. I'm very happy for you to take over and start. Andrea, you need no introduction. You've already been introduced, so over to you.
We should all be expert at that, unmuting. The one thing I guess I would like to add to my introduction, I'm not sure if I was a doctoral student of Barbara Tversky's, so I feel very indebted to her. I don't think I could have written this book without her. So yeah, so I just want to give her proper recognition for how much she has influenced me. So what I'd like you to do before we even start, before I start talking, is just take a moment to tune in. So I had some scrap piece of paper, a pencil or two, and I'm going to ask you, let's see, I should set a timer, just to take a couple of minutes, like literally 2 minutes, to tune into your space. What do you hear around you? So and another, just explain why I like to start out this way is because also understanding the drawing is a way of capturing much more than what you see. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for 2 minutes and just record however it makes sense to you, the sounds around you. So you can sort of think of yourself as kind of an oscillograph, or just kind of with the marks. If you hear something loud, maybe you go a little darker, a little stronger. If you just hear like a slight buzz in the background, or maybe something happening at a distance, it would be lighter. Does that make sense? Is that a good enough instruction? However it makes sense to you, and then we will share. Does that sound good? Yes, give me a thumbs up or something so I know that. Okay, so you're on board for that. So I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes, and then I want you to close your eyes and just see what you hear. It's funny, I'm in my office and I'm like near the front door of the building, and it's pretty quiet. It's amazingly quiet. Okay, go. Keep your eyes closed. That's an most important part of the instruction. Okay, stop. So how is that? We can, I'll share mine if you want to share what you did.
I don't think I pressed hard enough.
It might, but yeah, it's hard to show. Does anybody want to talk about what that was like, what they noticed? Yep, Jonah, or I'm sorry, who is that?
That's okay. I'm Johanna. I
Uh-huh.
found I listen differently with my right hand and my left hand.
Mm-hmm. Can you describe that a little bit more?
Well, and you can, I guess what's interesting to me is that on mine, they're totally separate. They're almost entirely separate.
Uh-huh.
And I'd never paid attention to that.
Uh-huh. That's really interesting. Dina?
I have a hearing disability where I hear everything. I also have a visual disability, so I've learned to write without seeing it. So I was writing out everything that I heard: the computer, the refrigerator, the water, washing machine, the bird, and the bells, and how much they hurt.
Uh-huh. Interesting. It's
is
like
that
a musical
misophonia?
score.
Sorry.
Yeah, every sound hurts me.
Oh.
So yeah, it's more of a pain score.
Hmm.
Is it misophonia or something else?
Hyperacusis.
Okay.
Interesting. Anybody else notice anything different?
I suddenly noticed a layering. So most immediately, I've become my grandfather. I've just been given an old pendulum clock. And the most noticeable thing of that is a beautiful little sort of constant soundscape in the foreground. And then it's a sort of mixture of songbirds in the garden just behind. And then in the main road outside, the sort of cars going by.
Huh.
So
Right.
there's also layering.
Yeah, no, that's really, I mean, I feel like one of the things that I've heard people, and you should have alluding to it, is how spatial our hearing is. That when we, how much spatial information we get from our, yeah, so that's really interesting. Okay, well, anybody else want to share? I'll just start my talk.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, I've done this a few times recently in connection with the book because, and I'm always surprised, even though I've done it before, in how much more is going on in the world when I close my eyes than I was aware of. And maybe just taking those 2 minutes to just think. But here, let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. So the title is why are we still drawing in 2023? And what is it that we can, how does it benefit us, I guess, in terms of cognition, in terms of the way that we think? Just going back to my slide, I really, most of my life, I've been an artist and a painter. And relatively recently, about 15 years ago, I went back. I was teaching, and then I went back and got a doctorate in interdisciplinary doctorate in cognitive studies and art education. So that's sort of my background, is really coming from a practitioner's point of view. And this is my book, which, thank you for letting people know about this. Published by MIT Press, which I was really excited about because I really feel like there is an artificial divide between art and science, that you know, this sort of right brain, left brain nonsense. And I'm really interested in breaking that down. Really starting with, this is chapter 1, thinking about what is thinking. trying to get at the nature of human thought in relationship to the act of drawing. So I'm interested in, when we talk about thoughts, you know, all the complications and ambiguities and variations in that, that our ability to think formed under the pressures of natural selection, having to do with the fact that we must act in order to survive, that action follows and directs our thoughts, that entangled patterns of thought and behavior evolve together to help us navigate the various environments in which we find ourselves. And that myriad and sometimes contradictory streams of thought flow together to guide our way through the world. We have so many different kinds of thoughts. And then that our capacity for symbolic thought developed in the broader context of the evolution of life on Earth. We're not particularly fast-footed, sharp-sighted, or strong, but we have interpersonal capacities that help us survive and thrive in this precarious space. The practice of drawing is found across almost all known human cultures and time periods. We can imagine our ancient ancestors' thought processes based on the traces of their beliefs, ideas, and experiences left behind on cave walls. Thought is fuzzy and ambiguous. We're constantly revising and reimagining our understanding of the world and ourselves. It is a complex series of interactions between our brains, bodies, and the environment. And we learn from experience. Our thoughts are not bounded by instinct or innate predisposition. They're malleable. But babies will often throw their spoons or dishes on the floors just to see what happens. We're always responding flexibly to new experiences by virtue of our remarkable ability to learn from the environment in which we find ourselves. We can respond to opportunities that may become available in unfamiliar or ambiguous situations and work together to adapt to whatever might happen next. We go with the flow. We've built thinking machines, and I think I'm speaking to some people who are really involved in that. That our minds calculate well enough to invent and build computers that are millions of times faster at calculation than we are. And that we've learned to build systems that are so much better and faster at solving problems than humans. But when we think about thinking, sometimes we're least aware of what our minds do best. That we're able to assemble the impression of a unified reality, the movie of our lives, from many sources of information generated by the body's encounters with the external environment. All manner of entangled individual, cultural, and evolutionary histories influence how we pay attention and interpret our experiences. And drawing is a way that we can explore the depths and learn more about these perceptual processes that guide our everyday activities. We might notice otherwise fleeting thoughts and actions. We might bring back hidden treasures, re-emerging to experience life with fresh eyes. So all the things that we don't notice, drawing allows us to slow down and be on the lookout. To be patient and vigilant and catch it when you can. We discover ambiguities which stimulate our curiosity and imagination. We uncover errors and false steps in our own thinking. And every once in a while, when we are lucky, we pull up a pearl of wisdom from those depths. When we draw, we can integrate all kinds of feelings and thoughts and make them visible. Indicating our feelings and thoughts with the form and qualities of marks and lines, we can re-examine them closely, pull them apart, and invent new ways of putting them back together again, surprising even ourselves. Drawing helps us capture and pay attention to all those fleeting sensations and perceptions that would otherwise be invisible. Both the visible and that patch of sunlight on the wall and the invisible, a feeling of loneliness or excitement at the sound of a train going by in the distance, may find their way into our drawings. We have evolved to think with our hands. To live in trees, our primate ancestors needed strong, mobile shoulders and arms. When we came to the ground to walk on 2 feet, they brought their powerful, agile shoulders, arms, and hands with them and could use them in new ways. We play and build pianos, pitch baseballs with surgical exactitude, and scale vertical cliffs just for the fun and challenge of it. We establish connection and comfort. We comfort each other with our hands. Holding hands with a loved one lowers blood pressure and reduces the experience of pain. Even holding a stranger's hand can help alleviate physical and emotional suffering. So much of thinking, of the way that we think about thinking, can be described by things we do with our hands. Opening, letting go, grasping, feeling, reaching, catch, prod, dig, fumble, mold, indicate, grope, and seize. These are all things we do with our hands. We have both power and sensitivity in our fingertips. Hand gestures help us think and communicate. Drawing integrates tool use with our abilities to think and communicate symbolically with our hands. When children first use pencils, they try grasping them in all kinds of ways. Eventually, they learn to hold them effectively, automatically, and can concentrate on their tasks. When we hold a pencil, the tip of the pencil is mapped into the area of the brain which controls the hand. According to the brain, the pencil, while in use, is part of our bodies. The hand, pencil, and mind are one. When children or adults are working through a challenging problem, psychologists have noticed that the meaning conveyed through words can be different from the meaning implied by the gesture. Psychologist Susan Golden Meadow is one pioneer of this work, and they've looked at many different kinds of problems and have shown that in the case of a mismatch between words and gestures, quite often the gestures indicate a more advanced understanding than the words. Drawing helps us harness the tendency of the human mind to perceive order, pattern, and meaning and agency in seemingly random events. The human imagination can be understood as a byproduct, an extirpation of the drive to discover patterns of cause and effect in the natural world. Observation, discovery, and invention are close companions. Our imaginations fill in the gaps in our vision, sometimes without even realizing it. We interpret random events as meaningful. We see the man on the moon or the castle in the clouds. Drawing creates a space to play with the drive to find meaning where there may be none. As we draw, we reveal and construct previously unknown aspects of complex phenomena, real and imagined. Adult artists and writers who regularly traffic in imaginary worlds sometimes talk about their invented characters as if they, like children's imaginary friends, had minds of their own. The graphic novelist Linda Berry says, "It's funny to think of the characters in my comics as being mine. I didn't plan their arrival. I didn't know they were coming. I didn't know why I drew them again at first, but they quickly took over my comic strip. When I moved my brush across the paper wall, they were there. When I stopped the brush, I'd lose the signal, and I couldn't get it back by thinking." And many artists and writers over the centuries have talked about their creations of their imagination in this way. Leonardo da Vinci famously said, "Look into the stains of walls or the ashes of a fire or clouds or mud or like places in which, if you consider them well, you may find really marvelous ideas, because by indistinct things, the mind is stimulated to new inventions." Marks and the gaps in between leave room for the reinterpretation and inference. we can allow new configurations and possible revisions to emerge. Ambiguous marks can suggest multiple alternative meanings. In ink or graphite, marks take on meanings beyond their material qualities. Imagination, perception, and memory rely on the same neural substrates. Functional brain imaging reveals that we use the same parts of our brain to make sense of what we are seeing now as when we remember or imagine a scene not currently in front of us. These are the secondary visual areas of the brain. The brain often fills the gaps in our knowledge without our knowledge, which is why we often think we know more than we do. In humans, in the course of our daily lives, we're continually called upon to interpret ambiguous situations, form hypotheses, and invent stories to fill in missing pieces. Where there may be a saber-toothed tiger in the bushes or a snake in the grass, better respond immediately and be wrong because you think you see one, but then not notice and be wrong. So this is sort of the source of many of the cognitive errors or biases that are sort of innate. Within the safety of the drawing surface, we can slow down and enjoy the possibilities uncertainty unleashes. Drawing affords us the opportunity to look and look again, revising and improving. We can explore our mistakes, let our imagination go astray, and allow ourselves to see things that a camera could never capture. So this is a quote that I really love by Maxine Greene, the educational philosopher, who said, "Look at things as if they could be otherwise, glimpse what might be to form notions of what should be and what is not yet." So where can a smudge or a scribble lead us? I think John Berger also had this quote that I really love that I think didn't make its way into the book, but is along the same lines, that a drawing is not important because it records what we see, but because of what it leads us to see. Drawing helps us get to know our own particular perspectives better. We become more aware of the limits of what we see from where we sit and can envision alternatives. Looking down roads not yet taken, we may picture what adventures might await, where the process of drawing itself can take us. So in this drawing, it says, just imagining and asking each other what we see. So I don't know if you can read the caption. It says, looks like a lion, looks like a rabbit, looks like rain. So those kinds of conversations that can emerge are really important. We may draw connections between our ideas, experiences, other people's stories, and bits and pieces from the larger culture in which we live. One of the exercises that I often ask my students to do is to verbally explain a process or an experience to another person, and then the other person draws the scene. So drawing and then having a conversation about the other person's interpretation of the words. So again, a different way of playing with words and images. We may draw connections between our ideas, experiences, other people's stories, and bits and pieces from the larger culture in which we live. In drawing and in life, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. A drawing encodes individual and shared perceptions and experiences. It's a record of what we have seen and felt, to be viewed by our future selves and others. And this small illustration has to do with the way that meaning is socially constructed in an interchange. And certainly, I think within this, thinking about how drawing is taught and passed, and the tricks and repertoire builds over the generations of techniques and tricks, really, of how to represent images and ideas. We attend to other people's body language and gestures to get insight into their motivations and intentions. When we look at a drawing, we can appreciate the marks as movements or actions taken by the drawer, because we ourselves have made similar kinds of marks. The universality of drawing as an activity makes it easy to relate to. We follow along. And this is the chapter. Chapter 6 is about thinking space. And it's very much about, I think these are some insights which I really owe a lot to Barbara Tversky. So just before I start talking, in terms of really understanding the psychology of spatial reasoning. We sometimes say that we need to turn things over in our minds when we feel the need to analyze a subject thoroughly. We want to get on top of a situation, cover a topic, uncover the facts, or put something to the side. Spatial analogies permeate our thinking so completely that we usually don't even notice them. So the blank page can be a physical extension of our minds. We draw out 2- and 3-dimensional models of real and invented objects, actors, and scenes, pull them apart, and put them back together in new ways. David Rosand is an art historian who wrote about Renaissance drawing, a really wonderful book called Drawing Acts. And this is a quote from that book, that to make a mark or trace a single line upon a surface immediately transforms that surface, energizes its neutrality. The graphic imposition turns the actual flatness of the ground into virtual space, translates its material reality into the fiction of the imagination. Both spatial and analogic reasoning rely on our ability to perceive deep structural relationships between superficial appearances. And also I have to say that the little structures that you see on this page were also inspired by a book called Sightless that was, now I have to remember, Francois Blancock, an architect with these sort of imaginary buildings. It's a wonderful little visual book of just all different kinds of imaginary structures that are really fun to play with. So how do experts use drawing to observe, discover, and invent? There's a body of psychological research on expert drawing processes that foregrounds uncertainty and open-ended questioning as key components of idea generation through drawing. So experts intentionally use ambiguity and indeterminacy to prompt discovery. They improvise based on prior experience and knowledge, and they postpone solutions. This is super important. And again, something I emphasize a lot with students, that they postpone solutions in favor of possibilities, because novices will just rush to, okay, it's done, you know, the conclusion, and experts take much more time. They slow down. This drawing was based on retrospective interviews that I did with artists and participants so these were veteran artists who had drawing as a central part of their practice. So they were contemporary visual artists. And I videotaped them drawing, and then I had them watch the videotapes and did retrospective interviews, like, why did you do this? Why did, you know, what happened here? And really broke down the videos kind of second by second. And these are some of the things that they told me. It's as if you were surfing when you're driven by the drawing, and you just keep drawing until it turns up in the paper. At some point, the drawing seems to take over. It's like a miracle. It's not you. One of the artists said, it's I could intentionally get myself in a situation where I'm lost and I'm going to have to work myself out of it. And these quotes always happened at this point in the drawing that the artist reported that they were learning what the drawing was about, that the drawing was beginning to speak back to them in some way. And when I looked at the sort of overall structure of the process of drawing, and this was specifically, I was looking at drawing for idea generation, not drawing for presentation, but drawing as a means to invention. That's what I was really interested in, discovery. And so they would come with a beginning strategy, and they would kind of begin to sort of map out their drawing, but that at a certain point, they started to get the feedback from the drawing. And there was a kind of alternating rhythm, like a regular rhythm, which you don't see in novice practitioners, but you see in experts, between a focus on specific details and kind of looking at how everything, all the parts are fitting together. So that experience has taught them to balance that focused activity with a holistic awareness, and in a systematic way. Oops, wait a second. So yeah. And that those patterns would vary from artist to artist. So just to say who I was talking to, they were contemporary artists, so they were doing it for its own sake. They weren't, you know, it wasn't part of a design process. It was just, they were just interested in making art. But they were working from observation, they were working from imagination, they were working from different cultural references that they'd collected, that maybe they had comic books or other kinds of reproductions of images, or maybe their own work that they were sort of recombining in different ways. So there was really a lot of different kinds of source material, but the actual structure of the process was very similar. One of the participants, the comics artist, Sharon Rosenzweig, who explains that the pleasure of drawing comes from when this formless void of marks and erasures burp up something funny or alive. So it's looking at that life that emerges from the process. And they would have many different ways of saying this, but the essence was that drawing is a way to have a conversation with myself on this level. Again, focusing on the kinds of drawings that artists will do to come up with new ideas rather than to present those ideas to others. So they often describe the process of drawing as a kind of call and response. It's a kind of top-down, bottom-up conversation where the top-down judgments and evaluation, explanations, and decisions are made in response to incoming data from the bottom, the perception, different kinds of perceptions, motor memory, motor plans, emotions, how they're just feeling that day, how they got out of bed that day. Bottom-up processes happen in real time in response to situations as they occur. They're learned and automated habits, routines, and skills, like those used for driving a car and riding a bicycle. And I think those are drawing habits too that you acquire through practice. The procedural knowledge, unwelcome, intrusive, frightening thoughts, and sudden illuminating insights into seemingly impossible situations are all flowing from the bottom up. So opening those channels to those types of becoming aware of that type of cognitive processes. Drawing slows down our bottom-up thoughts so we can see them better, so we actually notice them and can inquire. Nonverbal feelings and thoughts emerge, and we can see them take shape. Our attention widens, giving a respite from the commotion of our daily lives. When we take the time to pay attention, we become more self-aware and potentially more sensitive to others as well. And we can play with our thoughts from the top down. Drawing provides a reflective space to observe, discover, and invent, playing out real and imaginary scenarios. Ordinary or mundane moments become interesting as we observe our hands, eyes, and minds at work on the drawing surface. We can ask questions. There are always more lines of inquiry to pursue, internal and external worlds to observe, discover, and invent. We're constantly circling around understanding. The metaphor, the analogy is never perfect. We're always searching for a better way, a more complete way, another perspective. And I think as I get older, I don't know about all of you, but as I get older, it's sort of amazing about how I'm constantly rethinking and rethinking and rethinking many of the same issues, coming back again and again to ask new questions. Oops. So I want to conclude by encouraging you all to draw, whether or not you already have a daily practice or haven't really drawn since elementary school. I really believe that drawing is for everyone. You know, there's some kind of sorting, self-sorting that happens somewhere around age 8 or 9 or 10, when we decide some people can sing, some people can, you know, hit a ball or kick a ball really far. Some people can draw, and those basic pleasures of life, of singing or dancing or drawing, get reserved for the people who have been judged or judge themselves as doing it well. And I would really like to help to return drawing for everyone. It's actually something that we've seen a little bit during the pandemic, when people were isolated. There was a tremendous amount of activity drawing because it was something that everyone can do. And the materials are so accessible. And there were a lot of sort of online Zoom drawing groups that I became aware of. It was a way to feel connected when we were all very alone. So I just want to reiterate the point that drawing is for everyone. It's not just a way of representing things that already exist in the world or in our minds. It's a way of constructing ideas and observations as much as a way of expressing them. We can all use drawing to figure things out. It makes our thinking visible. When we are not ready or able to put our thoughts into words, we can sometimes put them down in arrangements of lines and marks. And there are many ways to draw. And I've been wanting to do this for years and years, and I haven't quite gotten the time to really sit down and write this book, which is just about the very many ways that we can draw. And here are 5 reasons that we all might want to use to draw. To observe the process of slowing down and really looking. I'm continually surprised after all these years and decades of drawing, how much more I see when I sit down to draw, and not just see, but hear and smell and feel on my skin. It's interesting when I go back and I look at sketchbooks from travels that maybe I had like 20, 30 years ago, and I look at my sketchbook and I just remember all those things, not just what I saw, but what I felt. To visualize, again, to imagine, to follow the scribble and smudge and see where it leads you. To remember and reflect, like what can you draw a scene from your childhood? And what do you remember, and how you may remember more as you draw more details come into focus that you might have not be able to retrieve any other way. Using drawings to solve problems, both individually and collectively, being able to diagram or somehow visually represent your problem can be the first step in solving something that otherwise might feel intractable. And then, of course, communicating with others, and even involving others, doing that problem, the problem solving or remembering or visualizing collectively and collaboratively. That's something that I'm super interested in, and I do with students and other groups of people all the time, that we put out a big sheet of paper, and there's different ways of beginning to create and construct a sense of a group mind through the drawing process. Is something that's one of my favorite things. It's hard to do on Zoom. I've tried it on Zoom. It's not the easiest thing, but we have done it with like whiteboards and that kind of thing. So why draw? Here's a semi but not final answer, but the answer, a provisional answer, that drawing offers us a way to cultivate deeper knowledge of our own internal thoughts and of the world in which we find ourselves. We discover that there's much more to observe, reveal than initially meets the eye. That we come to realize we know and understand less than we think we do, but at the same time, we gain access to ideas and perceptions otherwise hidden from our conscious minds. We're surprised by our own inventiveness, that sense of where did that come from? Through regular practice and reflection, we can develop habits of mind, heart, and eye that keep curiosity alive. Never be bored again. There's always more to observe, discover, and invent. Oh, wait a second. I had one more slide. I just stopped my screen. Let me just go. I'm going to share it again because let's see. Oh no, it's gone. Okay. Yeah. So you tell me what you want to do. If you want to how do I do this? If you want to do another drawing exercise, or if you want to talk a little bit and then do another quick 2-minute drawing exercise, you can let me know.
I have a question after this wonderful presentation. Really, thank you so much. And I can just see all the faces in the room so wildly agreeing with me. Over here in the UK, we have a podcast series by a guy called Michael Mosley. And he has a series of 15 minutes, things you can do to make your life better and so on. One of them chimes in with you from a different angle, and that is if you write for 15 minutes, just whatever's on your mind or whatever's bothering you, might not be the same thing, 3 times in a week, it has been shown to lower all kinds of nonsense in your brain because you write it and you park it out there. I'm wondering how that relates to what you were saying about drawing. Can you show us or talk to us something more about specifically how to draw in that way rather than, you know, maybe we do a doodle or maybe we try to draw literally what is on our head and so on? Is that a good question?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I think it doesn't matter like what you draw. And I think even doodling has shown to aid concentration and memory and all that. So I actually, the next exercise I want to do is sort of a doodling exercise. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things in common with other sorts of mindfulness exercises or just being in the present. I think that probably what the writing does is the same thing that drawing does, which is sort of bring you into yourself and center you in the present moment and space in which you find yourself, which I think is always has a positive impact. So I don't know, does that address your question?
It does, but then I have a follow-up. Sorry, guys. Okay. There's one thing that Annie's book and several other things recently has come up in our community, and that is if you look at video compression, you know, you can have a baseline thing for what the compression is compressing to. The human eye is interesting. I'm sure this is not news to you, but in terms of the relationship to what we're talking about, the human eye seems to not like 2 simple shapes and not like 2 complicated shapes. It seems that the human eye is optimized for nature, trees, leaves, which are hugely complicated forms. But we look at it and we think we're seeing that oak tree. And then you ask, can you tell me how many branches, big branches it had? And we can't answer that question. So I'm wondering, what you're saying now is so provocative and wonderful. When you're saying it doesn't matter what you draw, do you think there is something about just getting the thinking, because as we all agree, we do think partly with our hands, to get the thinking motion out there? Would you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I tend to gravitate towards observational drawing to get that experience. Maybe that's just because I'm really interested in that. But yeah, I think there's like this shift where you think you know what you're looking at, and all of a sudden you pick up your pencil and you try to capture what you think you know, and you realize you have no clue. So it sort of widens your perception in a way that I think is really feels good, is pleasurable. That sense of not knowing, or the ambiguity of phenomena, which is actually pleasurable, and figuring things out, which is actually pleasurable, right? And I have that same experience in myself. I've been playing with it, doing more abstract drawings, and I do think it's a very similar experience. It's that figuring things out, just that engaging in the pleasure of figuring things out as they present themselves in the moment.
Thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
Yeah, that was great. So much to talk about. I'm sure Fabienne will extend it further.
I don't know, but I can try. First, yeah, thanks again for the book and the presentation. Already had quite some insight while reading it, and drawing it. Like, you kind of force us to do exercise, which is always uncomfortable, but I'm pretty convinced that's the only way. Otherwise, you think you know, but yeah, if you don't practice, it doesn't work. And I was thinking about it doesn't matter what you draw. I would argue it doesn't matter what you actually do, as long as you do something about it. And some people in the chat were saying clay, sculpting, dancing, whatever. So I think as long as you do something toward the problem or how you feel or whatever, it just happened to be that a pen and a piece of paper or a sketchbook or whatever is probably the cheapest and fastest to just like dump whatever you have. Again, the challenge with the, but I think, yeah, on the book, the ability to have a medium that can be permanent enough yet flexible enough. Yeah, I think it's just so valuable. And yeah, drawing it, sketching it, whatever can be done, that really helps.
Yeah, I think that I wrote that down, like you just said. I think that it's permanent enough, but flexible enough. And I think that's the advantage that drawing has, is that it leaves the trace. So if you dance, and I mean, somebody can take a video of it, but you don't really have the same sort of trace. I mean, I think dance videos can be great, but I think they require sort of more technology. So I think having that trace that you can then look at later on, and sort of, rethink and reimagine is really something that makes drawing kind of special.
Peter.
Yes, I was wondering if you'd ever worked with any of the computer software like Krita that simulates drawing with natural media using a stylus on a tablet or a trackpad versus using the actual physical media. And have you talked to people who've had that experience, comparing the two? And is there any qualitative difference, or are the digital equivalents of the natural drawing tools just as good?
There is a super qualitative difference, and I go back and forth all the time. So like the illustrations for the book, a lot of them, and a lot of the more complicated ones, I would do as a pencil sketch. I would then, just take a simple photo on my iPad Pro. And I have to say, when I got my iPad Pro, it was like, I have waited for this tool for my entire life. It was so fantastic. So I was like an early adopter of the iPad, just the pressure sensitive, angle sensitive stylus. I love it. But then I would find it really frustrating, and it'd just be so fast, and it'd be, and then I have a lot to say about this. I haven't quite formulated it in an organized way, but when I got the paper screen protector, where it's a textured screen protector, that made a big difference. That was a big leap for me, because it gave you some resistance. So I think it's the resistance of natural materials that I really missed when I was, drawing on a glass surface. But then it was also, and I would bring it into Photoshop, I'm sort of always like jumping between a lot of different Photoshop and bringing it onto my desktop and doing certain things there that were easier there. So you kind of use the tool that does what you need it to do. But then I found, like, I was really unhappy with some of the illustrations, and I ended up almost at the last minute projecting them onto paper, big pieces of paper, and just redrawing them really with natural materials, with charcoal and watercolor and, you know, pencil and whatever else I had in my studio. So yeah, I think the answer is, it's like whatever works for what you need at the moment is what I use. And yeah. But I think it's really interesting. But I think one of the things also I think about a lot with students is that computers just make things look good. And now, especially with AI, it's just so easy. And as part of what I felt was missing with some of the drawings from my book was the kind of struggle, you know, the messiness of them. And sometimes computers are a little too clean and neat in the way that you draw. I mean, I have figured out a way of drawing. I'm sort of moving my hand to show you. When I work on the
Okay, how long will that go on?
Till 10 o'clock.
Okay. When I work on the tablet, I tend to you know, go very, very fast, because it's just the stylus just moves faster than a piece of charcoal that you're maybe kind of dragging across the surface, and that hasn't maybe been quite simulated yet. So I think the reason why I go back to natural materials is the resistance that, you know, a messy, you know, my fingers getting dirty. Sometimes I just really miss that and need that.
May I interject on your language, resistance? Because obviously I went to Chelsea School of Art, so, you know, I have a passion for where you're coming from. But, you know, we often talk about all kinds of virtual things in this community. But when you have a pencil and a paper, maybe the term isn't resistance, maybe it's contact, maybe it's a more positive thing.
There's a kind of intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I like that. I'm writing that down.
Because there's the thing of, you know, when you hug a tree, not that we're all hippies here, but, you know, the tree hugs you back. When you push something, it pushes back. So it's, yeah, okay. David, please.
Sorry.
Well, hi, thank you so much for your presentation. Very thought-provoking, and the visuals really just captured me. I'm wondering, as someone, it sounds like you are following the AI explosion that's happening right now, what do you see as the future of drawing? And I mean, obviously you can't, but just if there's some thoughts that you have, and also if there's some real opportunities and dangers that you see moving forward for our ability to draw because of AI. I'd be really interested to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to figure out, I really love the shift from artificial intelligence to intelligence augmentation that I feel like you guys are into. I'm just like looking, I have my book, like, for example, there's this illustration in the book. Can you see it? Let's see. By hand, right? It's what is it? A stellated dodecahedron. And I was trying to figure out how to draw it. And I just used a 3D modeling program to draw it. And then I sort of turned it, and then I kind of got an angle that I liked, and then I drew it. I could have constructed it from scratch, but that sort of gave me a boost. And I also have like an app on my iPad, which shows hands in various positions. And you can sort of pose them there. It's not perfect, but you can kind of pose it and you can move it around. So even at this primitive level of computer augmentation, of visual augmentation, that I use that when it's like whatever tool makes sense for the task at hand. So I mean, I have seen people using things like Midjourney in drawing classes to generate ideas, and then having students draw, you know, with physical materials from those generated images, which is really interesting. I don't think we've done it enough to understand what the positive and negative, you know, pros and cons of that type of drawing is, but I think it's really interesting. I think there's just a pleasure in drawing that, like, why would you take that away? Like, my husband had a metaphor, which was like, it's like AI might be able to, ChatGPT could write you a wonderful sex scene, but it just doesn't replace the actual having sex, right? It's just not like, why would you take the pleasure of drawing away from humans? So yeah, I kind of like that metaphor. I'm not sure all the implications of it, but I think that there's that sense of pleasure of figuring things out. Like when you talk about writing for 15 minutes 3 times a week can make a difference in people's lives. I think drawing for 15 minutes a week absolutely makes a difference. And when I don't have time to draw, when I'm just going from, meeting to meeting and class to class, and I don't have time to draw, my quality of life, just on an anecdotal basis definitely goes down. I try to make some time because I know that it just makes life better. So anyway, is that an answer? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So would you like to do another drawing exercise?
I think we would love to, but I think Jim and Jerry have something first, if that's okay.
Sure.
Barbara, first, thank you. It was
I'm Andrea. Barbara is my mentor.
I'm sorry.
I love dearly, but my name is Andrea.
I understand that. My apologies.
I take it as a big compliment that you are calling me Barbara, because
wonderful.
Huge inspiration.
I found the verbal words a wonderful compliment to the book itself, as well as the graphics you were showing on screen, because what the verbal words were doing were a whole nother dimension of the book. It's like the book is now in 4 dimensions in my mind, or 5. I want to get a copy of the transcript, number 1, to kind of add it to the book. And you captured the ambiguity of life and issues and problems by making it even more complex, but you reflected reality in doing it. So I really appreciate that. And that's something I'll be playing with for the next couple of weeks, probably, as I read the book further. So thank you again. Lastly, relative to the recent comment you made in response to the chat GP question, I have been trying for a long while to portray multiple points of view using objects. I've got some truncated pyramids in here, 6 looking at a sphere in the middle to represent ways of looking at a problem. And what your answer suggested to me, it reinforced the importance. I need to translate that object, which is one of a kind, to a digital version, which I can share with others. Because it's a very insightful metaphor that only I am using, and it would be wonderful to be discussing it with others. So the actual object is probably nowhere near as would be a digital rendering of that. So I could show that object in circles and show the 6 different points of view. So drawing again, in a sense, makes the object richer and more accessible. Thank you.
Okay, guys, come in now. Can you hear? Yeah. Thank you, Andrea. Beautiful, beautiful. Just 2 little things. One is I couldn't draw. I always wanted to draw and always like to draw. I just can't draw a straight line. Okay, I'm sort of neuro. My brother inherited all the skills. He was drawing all his life. Okay, but still, I think it is the most expressive things. I draw for that, but it's not drawing; it's just sketching. So I would like to hear what you think about sketching as a way in, because that's really helpful. And just one thing, that you use the phrase representing. You are, as an artist, you never represent anything. Not even the scientists do. They think they do that, but they are wrong. You are presenting. I really don't have the time to discuss this, but take that seriously. Our thinking about ourselves is destroyed by that, because you are presenting. The agency is lost. Okay, I just wanted to make that point. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's pretty deep. You're diving in there, Jury. Andrea, I'm sure you have many thoughts on that.
I'm sorry, stop that. Okay. Okay, now you can hear me. Sorry, I'm getting too excited by what you're saying. Sorry. Yeah, about presenting. I really like that. I wrote that down. That's a beautiful way of thinking about it. And I also, in terms of the no straight line, I think that straight lines aren't that interesting. And, you know, we have all kinds of technology that can draw beautiful straight lines forever and ever. So it's the messy lines that actually make life interesting. It's that, you know, I think the ambiguity and all that that make things interesting. And I think when people say they can't draw, I hear that all the time. And of course you can draw. You make a line. I mean, if you were at the beginning, you drew your observations. You know, I think maybe, you know, if you can hold a pencil with your hand or some other part of your body, you can draw. If you can, you know, there's all kinds of ways, assistive technology that can help us draw. So it's more that maybe what you feel,
I draw that. Yes. Not stopping me drawing, but it's not, I can't draw what I see, what I want to do. That's what I mean.
Right,
you know.
exactly. That's what I figured.
I draw,
yeah,
but it's not what I would like to be able to draw.
Neither can I.
Yeah, okay.
That's one thing. And I think you just, maybe at a certain point you enjoy it, you find pleasure in it, so you just keep doing it anyway, even though you can never hit that target. But I also think that it's sort of, I don't have a very good singing voice. I can't carry a tune very well. And a friend of mine was just lecturing me. It's like, you can learn. Like some people, you know, can just automatically carry a tune. Some people have to be taught. And they have to go through a process of learning, of it, breaking it down in steps. So yeah, so just because you don't automatically out of the box know how to draw. And did you say your brother or somebody else in your family could do that? There's often like,
oh yeah, but it's not that I tried to do it. I learned that I tried to do a lot. I had trouble writing, so you know, my writing was, you know, just couldn't write until I was 21. Yeah, I mean legibly. You know.
So that's interesting. So it's an issue of fine motor control.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and that again improves, you know, through practice. Yeah, we're all born with unique, you know, capacities, right?
Yeah, I wonder about that. I definitely could accord to that in terms of fine motor control. And my father's an artist, so it's not as if it hasn't been around me all my life. But yeah, that escapes me. So that's why I do an awful lot of abstract work, actually mentally, because it's the one thing I can draw and that you know can actually keep up with the speed I want to go at. The moment I try and put it out onto paper or something. That said, I mean, I doodle permanently, but that's more bleeding off. If I'm talking to someone, I'll often have to doodle so I can slow down to the right speed, brain speed for conversation.
Yeah.
I'd like to comment on that because, as I mentioned earlier, I actually have a degree in art stuff from Chelsea School of Art, and I call it art stuff because it was very crazy and interesting. But I also am very bad at drawing. However, I did in the final year make myself draw my shoes because drawing something relatively non-figurative, you know, these were very worn shoes. I managed to do it, and it was a pretty good drawing. Not something for an exhibition, but it is something if you spend the time. And of course, let's not forget there are tricks, and these tricks are completely valid. Like Andrea was talking about earlier, there's nothing wrong with making a 3D model and tracing it if you want to do that, or drawing it from just the 3D thing. Also, when we learn to draw faces, we are taught to draw them upside down, because otherwise our cognitive interpretation of what a face should be might override what it is. So that's a very useful exercise, tend to be better. So if the goal is to learn to draw, it can be learned. There's absolutely no question about it. But I think a lot of the real wonder and benefit from what Andrea has been talking about today is, unless you want to become a drawer, it really doesn't matter. And there is, of course, very different things between drawing for yourself, even without, you know, in a meeting, maybe like playing with Lego blocks just to distract yourself. That's one thing. Drawing to think for yourself is another thing. Drawing to share with someone else is yet something else. And drawing to impress someone else is something completely different. So, you know, if we're just cognizant of the differences, we can have fun. And within the text thinking, the whole thing about writing for 15 minutes for, you know, makes a lot of sense. But maybe in this community, now that we've opened ourselves to AI and VR and all these things, the key is, of course, augmenting who we are. And augmenting who we are is, of course, partly learning how to think better, whatever that might be, but also how to be in the world. So I think what we've been looking at today is really, really lovely. And if you look at the evolution of our species, you know, the evolution of the hand is so key to our thinking. So to just let the hand do something, you know, in whatever capacity is just really wonderful. David?
Okay, sorry. I'm interested to get your perspective on how drawing can help a collaboration, how we can improve our thinking together with drawing, both in person and online. And I am specifically interested to know if there are any people that are doing drawing together using your iPad Pros and these new tools, but on a digital whiteboard, and if that has proved to be interesting or useful to people.
Yeah, I mean, over the course of the pandemic, I did do some whiteboard collaborative drawing exercises with folks. And I don't know what to say about it. It was fun. We hadn't, you know, maybe we weren't using the right tools, and maybe you guys could help advise me on tools that might work a little bit better. But I think we didn't have enough people that had the right tools to do it really effectively. So it was just sort of, it was fun, but it didn't feel like it had the same depth as the collaborative drawing exercises that I do in person. So I probably could really use some advice on tools. So we would use like Zoom's whiteboard feature to do. I think that was the thing that we actually found was the best to do. We used Miro a little bit, but yeah, I think the Zoom whiteboard feature was the one that we kind of settled on. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should try more of that. Do you have advice for us on good web-based tools?
No, I mean, the ones I know about are Miro and Zoom Whiteboard. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple other ones that are very similar to Miro. One of them is called Mural, I think, but I don't know if there's any differentiation in terms of collective drawing. What about collective thinking, but using collective drawing? Have you seen, I mean, I guess it's probably more in person that you would have observed this, but I always am intrigued and find it helpful when I'm at a conference and they have somebody doing those drawings of the top. And I'm wondering if, I guess, like your feedback.
Yeah, I love sketchnoting and I make all my students do it. And sometimes they really resist. So they're art students and they won't do sketch notes. They want to write me an essay. And I have to really convince them. And then they get so anxious. And then I have them working collaboratively because it helps them deal with the anxiety because they feel like it won't look good, you know, and they don't have, and that's like not the point of sketch notes. It's the point of sketch notes is just to get down what, you know, I think the value, what I convince them is that the value is about really being selective and editing your, oh shoot, something just happened to my screen. Can you still hear me? Can you talk?
Yes, yes.
For some reason, my screen just went black. But as long as you can see me, it looks like my camera's still on. What is it? Why is it doing that? I have no idea. So yeah, so I do a lot of, I really believe in sketch notes. I went to a conference maybe 15 years ago and they were doing sketch notes and it was like so great. And ever since then, I've been trying to convince my students to do them. But yeah, after the initial resistance that I get from them, and that's real resistance, they get into it. And what I really love is I don't give them a specific way of doing them. I just sort of make them keep doing it and finding a way that works for them. And that's been really great. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that.
And they do that in groups of 3 to 5 or so? You said
well, I do different ones. I have them do individual sketch notes, and then I also have them, you know, as a way of understanding, you know, article or paper I'm having them read. I have them present it to the class in the form of a sketch note that they do collaboratively. Or sometimes I just give them a problem and I have them conceptualize it visually and share it with the class. So I have a whole bunch of like in-person collaborative drawing stuff that I do with my students that kind of hit all those I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted because for some reason my computer screen keeps going black, but so I have a whole bunch, and I haven't successfully figured how to deliver them online, but I'm open to suggestions.
And
your
the follow-up
battery
question.
may be running low, Andrea. That's why it's turning off.
I'm sorry?
Your laptop battery may be low. That's why it's turning off the light of the screen.
She's on a Mac, Jerry. It's impossible to run out of battery.
Okay, that's fine. That's
No,
fine.
I'm plugged in, so I'm not, and it's.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't know what's happening. I can't figure it out.
One little follow-up is, do you consistently see a 1 + 1 = 3 or 4 or 10 type of situation from collaboratively doing these sketch notes or other types of drawings? I mean, are you seeing a building of a value from the bringing it together, or is it more just like 1 + 1 = 2?
No, it's definitely a value together. And I think one of the big values is that it relieves the anxiety, the performance anxiety, you know, like I can't draw sort of anxiety, and making it look pretty. But I also think like I think I have it in the book. One of the exercises I do a lot is sort of collaborative problem solving through drawing. And so I ask people, you know, knowing that brainstorming in a group is less effective than giving people a few moments to brainstorm on their own and then share out. That what I do is I have them, it's just funny now, I'm talking to a black screen. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by that. So what I have them do is draw their problem as a diagram, draw it as a cartoon, draw it as sort of an abstract design. So if your problem is heavy or dark or light or out of reach, you know, sort of thinking about visual metaphors and draw it that way. So draw it a bunch of different ways and then share and then see what they have in common, or see if you can somehow synthesize all the different ways that people have come up with of drawing this problem. And that's been really effective for making really interesting, collaborative, you know, visual metaphors or visual depictions of problems, and then that naturally kind of lead themselves to this process of, you know, pulling them apart and putting them back together in new ways to find a solution. So that's a whole workshop that I give sometimes, that has been kind of revelatory, really interesting.
Thank you.
So I'll have a remark or an answer, let's say, to the question earlier about paper versus digital. So to me, the main difference is actually, one is finitude. It's like, once you have the paper one, you're stuck with what you have.
Yeah.
But if you have the digital one, especially if you have a developer on the team, it's like, what if we were to do this and this and that, which is super exciting, but then are you actually doing the thing you were supposed to do in the first place? So I would put this as a warning that, yeah, it is exciting because you can literally do more. I don't want to say anything, but yeah, that's the open-endedness that might be misleading. And then the question is, what is the second exercise?
I'm sorry?
What is the second
what
exercise?
was I going to have you do?
I have a question first.
Okay. Can I just respond to what you're saying? Yes, I think I just want to agree with what you just said, that it definitely is that sense of infinity. And you make a mistake, you can just undo it. Whereas on a piece of paper, you can't just undo it, you have to work with it. So yeah, and even if you have an eraser, it's going to leave its own mark. Whereas, so I think that sort of, the history that you have in a physical drawing is very different. It's right there. Whereas in a digital, you can just so easily hide it and forget about it.
And rearrange. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Resize and everything. Yeah.
I do look forward to the second exercise, but I just wanted to reflect and ask a little bit about the act of doing versus kind of the process. So I did this bookbinding course a few weeks ago. I've told everybody about incessantly. It has no informational value, what I made. It's a nice book. But for me, the process was incredibly de-stressing because I was using physical faculties. And also just the joy of having a new piece of paper and an HB pencil or something, of course, in itself is immense. But it's also very easy to call that just indulgent. I think what you've helped, did you freeze? Is she here? Are you here on audio, or is it the laptop? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you are here.
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear, I just can't see.
I just thought your laptop battery just went completely right. So, you know, so I think one of the things you've taught us today, that even something that may seem very indulgent does have a real mental purpose. So first of all, thank you for that. And then secondly, I think drawing in VR/AR will become hugely important because first of all, it's digital, so it's shareable. But also one thing that Fabienne has been quite pushy about in a very good way is, yes, VR will be great, but not only. So we could imagine doing a pencil sketch and having it relatively easily be scanned where it is. So we have both, but then being able to do collaborative pieces. One thing, you know, I am by birth an artist and not necessarily in the good way. And one of the bad ways is I don't really like to collaborate. When it's something creative, it's mine, gosh darn it. You know, if it's an intellectual creative endeavor to do a product or a solution, fine, that's fine. But if it's arty stuff, it's mine. But in an environment like that, we can collaborate, and then later on, we can decide on what do we own together? What do we own separately? What the contributions were? which will be different in value for different people. But I think that a lot of the kind of drawings, I could imagine, literally drawing in thin air, as of course can be done today, will become more accessible. And I just wanted to highlight that I think you've really helped us understand today that it'll be more and more valuable. So thank you.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, I agree. That sense of ownership is really important. And I do think that digital tools allow us to do both, have our own contribution that we can segregate and then also see that as part of a collaborative effort. Yeah.
Lovely. So we look forward to exercise.
Okay. Now I'm not going to be able to see what you do. So maybe you could send me some screenshots. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I was just told by an IT guy that I need a new computer, so that could be it. But
why don't you just take the time after you've given us the exercise to restart your whole computer and log back in?
Okay, sounds great. So what you're going to do is start out by, again, not looking at your paper. And you don't have to close your eyes as long as you don't look at your paper. And just experiment with drawing different kinds of lines, slow, fast, curved, pointy. And you really want to just cover your paper with a whole network of lines. And yeah, I can't. And you could also even kind of use the lines that you did for the previous exercise. Sometimes we do that with the sound, the recorded sound drawings, and just keep drawing on top of that until you basically want the whole page to be covered. So I'm going to let you do that for a couple minutes, and I'm going to try to restart my computer and see if that solves the problem. So thank you. I'll be back hopefully shortly.
Shall we prank her? Shall we all draw the same thing? All right, just kidding. Let's be serious, right? Oh, by the way, I do have to show you this. Edgar came in and he drew that. He's only 5, So are we closing our eyes and shutting our mouths?
Yep.
Okay, I'm not good at that, but I'll try. Thank you. We can see you, Andrea.
Okay, great. I just came in on my phone.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I need a new computer because it's completely fully charged. So I don't know what happened. so I apologize. So now, do people have drawings with just like a network of lines? Okay. So now, and I'll just show you from the book where we're going with this. This is the process by which I did one of the drawings on the chapter about imaginary friends. So the idea, and we do this as a collaborative game. It's a really fun game as well. Let me just find my page. So here, this is where we're going with this. Within this network, you can kind of see what shapes emerge. What do you notice? Do you see creatures? Do you see landscape animals? Do you see, landscape elements? Do you see whatever, imaginary outer space, underwater, what does this make you, remind you of? Maybe a shape or a line. See if I can just put this here. So I made myself a super quick drawing of just really sort of very, very random without thinking about it too much. And then what do I see this morning? I'm not sure. And this is, I think, another way to get around this idea of like, I can't draw, because it's just like, it's silly. We all have the ability to be silly. So I don't know, that's just a really quick one that I did. Get the idea of it.
Can I just make a quick comment about people working? I lost that one. There was a tweet, probably many people see it, that was a dots and somebody drew a dragon, and this is what conspiracy theories are. Okay, I got an experiment in schedule, put in drops and try to draw. No, the only way you end up with dots that give you that trigger, if you actually have that there, then make the dots. It's just incredible. It's impossible. I tried it with cats, anything. Try it out. Random dots, you obviously, it's very fine, you can. But what I mean with that kind of resolution of really this big, sort of, so that a head would have 4 points at max, one arc.
Right.
You can't, okay?
Right.
It just works. So this is the other way around, but in your action, you can see a lot more in not dots, but shapes. Yeah.
That's so interesting that you said that, because what it's reminding me of is I did not find it easy to draw. I always felt like I couldn't draw, and they weren't what I had in my mind. And I was really interested in figure drawing. As a kid, I just loved drawing people. But what a teacher told me when I was already in my 20s, I remember, is like, look for the letters, like in those shapes that seem sort of random. Like, does it look like a W? Does it look like an F or a P? And as soon as I did that, I could get the shape.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there was no like W written on somebody's forehead, but it gave me,
Yeah, very
Yeah,
interesting.
that's it. That is one of those tricks that really works and really helps.
Yeah, this is the one that that Frode was talking against. This is why you should try to draw upside down, because you really have to look at, you know, not in the familiar patterns. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Okay,
thank you for that. Have people had a chance? I've sort of lost a little bit of track of time when I was dealing with my computer issues.
Yeah.
Maybe one. Okay.
Done a little bit, but the last few minutes, there's a few other things we need to go through as well. But I think we have 10 minutes together for you.
Okay. All right. Could you know, I lost this chat. I lost all the, but you've recorded this and you've recorded the chat as well.
Yeah.
Because I would love to get some of those comments that I saw sort of flying by.
Well, one thing
Okay.
that is quite interesting, it's not to do with drawing, but it's to do with visual, and that is looking at the different qualities of how we look on this screen. I would say that, Andrea, you and me, it looked like we're using the most up-to-date camera. But isn't it fascinating, a couple of things? First of all, how Zoom recordings are a real record of today. You know, like you have early video art that has a very specific look, and it's the same today. Now it's transitioning. I think that in a few years, whether they're super high quality camera or AR, VR meetings, we're going to look back at this in a kind of a fondly thumbnail sized artistic wonder, you know?
Right. Yeah, I was in a few meetings over the past couple of years that had like these kind of environments that you could supposedly could mingle about and have conversations with people, but they never seemed to be, they didn't seem quite that operational yet. It was sort of more of an idea of this kind of virtual space. I don't know, that's my my experience. Maybe you guys have experienced more functional virtual spaces.
Well, you've added an important and highlighted an important dimension. That is, you know, for me in a meeting, I don't want you to see what my hands are doing all the time. You know, I am doing a bit of doodling and so on. So the level of involvement that we want to present, you know, when we have a physical meeting all together, it is very different. It has a different level of taxing of what we do, of involvement. It's going to be very interesting to see in the future how we can choose to dial in and dial out our presence. And maybe what will happen is, you know, some of these webcams, they can also, you know, look straight down. So with what you've been talking about with drawing, I could imagine a meeting where you don't see anybody's heads, you just see their doodles.
Yeah, because we're always like holding up our picture. I mean, I've been doing a lot of this over the past few years, and it's always lacking. So, can I make a request before you finish up? That if anybody could send me, or they send you, if you could send me their drawings, if they wanted to share that, I would love to collect the drawings from this meeting, if you would be so kind.
I think that's fair enough for those who want to.
Okay.
All
right.
Oh, Andrea, I don't have your email address. Would you be comfortable sharing it?
Yes, absolutely. It's just, can I write it on my phone? Let me see.
Please.
Oh, come on. This is where I start to feel old. Here we go. There it is.
Fantastic. So I will now email you about what's upcoming.
Okay.
And, so everyone, on the 20th of April, we're having a special session. Can you please check your calendars now to see if that's a reasonable date? It is, for the record, a Thursday.
What time?
Same time as this today. I'll
4 o'clock.
be sending out an invitation. So the thing is, and I briefly talked to Andrea about this ahead of time.
5 is okay. 5 is okay. Sorry.
Brilliant. Because the next few sessions, and this will also be in an email to you guys, I won't be here because we'll be in Japan with the family, and that will be just too horrible time zone issue. But so this is the thing for that special session. I'm co-hosting it with Vince purely, to get more people in. It all, it helps to use his name, to be honest. And it's based on AI and academic writing. I got an email from the ACM saying they're changing their policy. They're not changing, they're upgrading their policy so that no artificial writing will be allowed in any article in ACM journals. And I found that a very knee-jerk and frankly, I'm not going to use, ridiculous. I found it a bit ridiculous, old person attitude, especially coming from one of my advisors, Wendy Hall, who was one of the big people there. She signed the email with someone else, because when we read academic articles, no one will say that you shouldn't use any kind of machine learning or AI to help you go through the articles. That is an absolute acceptable tool. Of course, when you get to an article that you need to read properly, nothing is better than spending time to go through it. But when you're comparing with other things and doing volume reading, do you all agree that machine tools are useful? And they're not.
No, they are not.
They're not illegitimate, right? Absolutely reasonable. Okay, what's Jerry saying?
Well, I think this is the whole problem is I've just been watching the Rex Friedman and the podcast with the CTO of ChatGPT, and even he says the problem with that is unvetted. That I can publish without even caring to read. That's the danger. And to plug down human mind. I mean, even he was saying that we are anthropomorphizing. You cannot help but to pay attention. Okay, and it's really that he didn't say that I add this. This is simply poisoning the well, because we don't have the bandwidth, the capacity to really check it out. And even he was saying the trouble is the way it works, it's so that he actually said this in the interview. It is very dangerous because you test it, it's working fine, and it actually, the way it works, it makes up references as if they were real. Now that's lethal. Nobody will check that.
Okay, I think we're talking about different things. I am not talking about using ChatGPT and asking a question about something and getting the answer and accepting that as having surveyed the literature or anything like that. What I'm saying is that, okay, this is not really the day for that discussion. That day is upcoming. But my point is that, reading using different tools seem to me that to some degree are legitimate. Let's not go into everything. I'm sure Jerry and I would meet somewhere in the middle for different areas.
No, reading, I'm fine. Reading, I all in favor of. Yes. Okay. I'm doing it all the time.
Right. Okay. So generally, as part of the process, that seems to be not too contentious. However, when we then start looking at authorship using AI, it becomes extremely slippery because automatic spell check is a very weak form of AI to begin with. So is grammar checking. There are, the human being's need to communicate an intent is, of course, at the very core of what this community is. Communicating intent is really hard, whether it's with text or drawing or sound. Now, I'm not exactly a proponent of using AI to write a sentence or two and it makes it very flowery and academic and long. That's kind of a joke, as we see on social media. But what I am in favor of is using the kind of dialogue that we can have here to look at You know, when is it actually useful? Because it's very easy to bicker and be old people and say it's new and it's horrible. But there's absolutely no chance in hell that students will not find different ways to plug this into their work. So I think us as stewards of thought and communication, we have a duty to really try to find what is the best of it, what can this medium offer us, and have a more reasoned debate around it. And I can't see anyone else doing it because of that ACM email. It's, you know, that's from on high, and many places, including in New York, AI-based writing is completely banned in schools. That's very similar to banning calculators in the 70s. You know, so it's a powerful thing. It can
sorry to interrupt. Calculators, the point is that the calculator is always right. ChatGPT isn't. It's the wrong analogy.
Well, Jerry, I think we can spend some time on that when we meet on the 20th. However, I think that we're living at a time of massive change. There's climate change, there's a war in Ukraine, there's income inequality, there are some really big, serious issues going on. And within technology, AI is one of them. I think that we do have a responsibility as intelligence augmentation people to accept that this is a thing. It is insanely powerful, and like anything powerful, not always for good and not always for bad. But I think we really have to take, you know, accept it will be used. What guidelines and systems can we build? What I am doing, and I may be able to show on that day, I'm building AI into author and reader. Actually, I'm going to show you really quickly what I mean by that. So many windows, and that's up here. Hang on, excuse me while I, okay, you don't need to see all my personal nonsense. Okay, I'm doing it again. This is really, really simple stuff, but so because when you read and when you write, these are very different things. And obviously, having been a teacher and having been being very concerned about, sorry, this Zoom's toolbar is in the way. Okay, I don't want to just give students the opportunity to click a button and it's done. That's ridiculous. So imagine this: while you're reading, come across a paragraph you're not so sure about, and you have a new option in your control click menu that says Ask AI. I'm using that instead of a brand name because we don't know what will be underlying in the future. And then we have these options. One could be, what does this relate to? Show me more examples, and so on, right? What happens is the selected text plus this gets sent to the AI engine, so that becomes the prompt. So in this case, I did, is this correct? And I've done this through actual ChatGPT, so this is what I got back. It says, yes, that statement is correct. The complement system, blah, blah, blah. So it does that. Now, nowhere do I say that this is quote unquote God's own truth or anything like that, but it is a way to integrate in a conversational manner to help you read the material. That's irrelevant. And then the second half of this is implementing it in an author, I think is more of a challenge because we really don't want that automatic writing. So here will be something like, you've written a paragraph, and then you can have the suggest what to write next, show me more examples. And then it gets more interesting. Show me counter examples to what you have written yourself, and so on. So you get a similar type of reply. So here I chose the prompt, suggest what to write next. And it doesn't just give the text, it says, given the paragraph, you could write about this, that, and the other. And that's it. I'm not going to spend the time doing like product demos here, but what I'm saying is the act of trying to write a spec for how to make this a product that helps people think rather than takes thinking away is an approach I'd really like us to see in different ways. Over.
But Fred, I think the challenge, I don't think it's necessarily a thing of good or bad. I think the danger for us all is we see the badness starting just beyond our own interested use of it. And dependent what we want to use it for. you know, we can all find something good in it. So it's very powerful. But so I think the challenge, you know, discussing this actually in a group of, you know, well, I was the only non-teacher there. You know, one of the things is to sort of teach people to be honest about the way they're using it. So if it helps you write better English or you know, German or French or whatever, that's good. That's not, you know, it's not a bad thing. The problem is if you lean on that to do that part of your communication for you, it's both to a degree dishonest if you don't admit that's what you're doing, and so that's what we have to teach people to do. And the problem is if we rush say, oh, this is wonderful, and we should rush to use it before actually having some reflection of where the goods and the harms are, is I think the challenge. So I certainly sit on the fence about it, but I don't actually see it, you know, it's a great thing we should encourage everyone to rush to use.
Well,
hang on, just to reflect on reply to Mark. I kind of agree with you, but whether or not we suggest people should use it or not, I don't think there's any question that people will. And on Twitter right now, at least on my feed, at least 50% is people talking about this and talking about specific prompts and showing what's coming out of it. So I don't think, I don't in a way care about is it good or bad. I care about it is a reality for many. Can we help it be useful and not just a brain drain? Because we most certainly don't want to just outsource. Yeah, Jerry, quickly before Fabian.
Please check out that LinkedIn comment. He's a top writer on Stack Overflow, and he's saying he will stop sharing. It destroys people sharing ideas between them because it's basically it's like you know, they just sort of suck it all in, and it's really for the benefit of the machine, not for people. And the whole collaboration breaks down at that point, because you will have better, everybody will connect to the AI and cease talking to each other. That's what we are playing.
Okay, Jury, I think that is absolute nonsense. I really do, because the thing is, with the evolution of computing system, there is no mechanism on the earth which has the ability to slow it down or stop it. Right?
Oh, there is.
No, there isn't. No, for instance, Gordon Moore died last week, and we all know Moore's law, even though, of course, he got it from Doug Engelbart, which is very well documented. But you know that increase in capacity in software, the United Nations or Putin or you know Donald Trump or a president, nobody can stop this.
Well, it can be much faster and better than what we have today.
Yeah, but Jerry, you and I are on the same side when it comes to the augmentation. We absolutely are, as you very well know, right? So the thing is,
at the moment we augment the machine, not the machine augments us.
Yeah, but Jerry, we're sitting here in front of our computer screens. It's not that long ago people were saying, oh, people are just staring into their computer screens or their iPhones, they've lost all human contact. We know very well we're going to meet up in person too. So it's not like, are you only going to be on Zoom or in person? AI will happen. It will get bigger. There's no, unless we, like Jaron Lanier was, of course, a keynote speaker at the Future of Text. He warned us of some very real dangers with AI that I completely accept.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be very careful and just, if we just say no, 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 it's not going to help anyone. But if we say,
I'm not saying no, no, no. We just have to do better. We should be more conscious. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, Fabienne.
Yeah, I'll try to reconnect a little bit with the book and the discussion. I will try just very briefly to share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
Oh.
Does it work?
Yeah, I can see your screen. Yeah, it should resume. Yeah.
So yesterday was Sunday. I was reading the book. There was especially the chapter on a tool for thought, and of course, it gave me some ideas. This guy poorly sketched, but still sketched enough to help me. And then I implemented it in VR yesterday, and a bit better version after to draw basically in 3D. it's not perfect, but I think, and I only used my hands and my mind, not code generation using AI. My point there is from Sherry Turkle, Reclaiming Conversation. And my interpretation of her work on this and our relationship to technology is that we should be free to use it when we want, not being coerced into it. And I think having the freedom and even the pleasure, as was briefly mentioned, to sketch or to program or to do whatever task we want is extremely valuable. If we're pulled in mindlessly, regardless of the technology, I think that's pretty dangerous and going to hurt us.
Oh, no question at all. You know, I have we're lucky enough here in Wimbledon to have a bit of a garden. Most of my life, I've never cared about anything green at all. And now I'm all about what Annie wrote about the importance of nature and so on. There are so many faculties in us, and Brandel, would go on and on about this if he was here today, that we need to use, not just pretend it's eyes, brain, and fingers. So we have to figure out how to not just be sucked in by simple AI conversation. There's no question. But I would also very much ask you guys if you could please watch the video I just shared. It's 1 minute long while muted, and tell me when you're done, because I have a question. It's something that has been added to Visual Meta, and I've been dying to show you this. It's only just working today.
Very nice.
Thank you. I just noticed Andrea had signed off, so I was going to email her. Thank you. I showed this to Mr. Anderson while I was still being mocked up, and he made some very reasonable points about having multiple folders and stuff. For the time being, that doesn't actually matter, because these PDFs, when you download them, automatically gets copied into Reader's library. So if you have your own library, it won't actually matter that much unless you do annotations, which is another level. So that's what I'm hoping to show to the ACM, who's expressed a real interest in Visual Meta, although in a slightly snarky manner, but that's for another conversation. For my corrections, I've been going through the original work for PDF, and I think you will find this interesting. So PDF came out of the Camelot project, and John Warnock wrote, the issue was to solve a fundamental problem that confronts today's companies. The problem is concerned with our ability to communicate visual material between computer applications and system. The specific problem is that most programs print to a wide range of printers, but there is no universal way to communicate and view this printed information electronically. And he goes on and he talks about, if this can be solved, it'll change how people work. Of course he did. But what's exciting about right now, of course, is we have a much wider range of what we might consider to be a printer. In a sense, you could think of a VR environment to be a printer, right? You're printing it to that environment. So for us to keep the conversation open as to how we encode, and today we had a very, very analog discussion. Even if, drawn in a digital device, drawings are very analog compared to text. It'll be very interesting to see where that can go. Any other comments until I hand the mic over to Peter? Before. Everybody okay with the next 3 weeks being silent?
Yep.
And if you have any thoughts on AI and augmentation that isn't either, oh, it's great, or oh, it's horrible, please figure out a way to write it online, blog or whatever you want, so we can share that with the community and get a bit further, so we're a bit more nuanced and prepared. Peter.
Yeah, I think in academia, our solution is going to be borrowing on the literate programming ideas from Knuth. And what we should do is have the student explain their process. Instead of just having us turn in the final document and have evaluation on the final document, the evaluation should be on the process that arrived at the final document. So that means if I give a prompt to an AI, let the student hand me basically an online digital notebook that shows, here was the query he made to the AI. Here was the AI's response. Now, here's how he edited the paragraph, or here's the completely independently written paragraph he wrote that was inspired by the AI's response. And then you'll be able to judge how much creativity was involved in the student's final production versus the AI's level of contribution. But if we're just looking at the final document, you're never going to be able to tease out whether it was just a cut and paste job from an artificial system or whether actual thought went into it. If instead we go with a literate programming model and we show all of those steps, it could even include, I sent an email copy to Frode and Mark Anderson. Here's the chunk of text Mark Anderson sent back with some comments. And then here's what I finally came up with at the end. And hopefully with visual meta and all, we'll also be able to start tracking the credits for those contributions along the way. So the system could automatically say, based on feedback from, and provide the list of the email and ORCID IDs of everyone who'd submitted feedback that went into that notebook that got turned into the final document. But looking at the final document alone, we're losing too much information to be able to make the evaluations of the final result that we want to be able to make. So unless we preserve that process along the way, it'll be a nightmare and the students will just lie to us and we'll guess whether the student was telling the truth or not. That's one of the things that bothers me also with systems that are supposed to automatically detect stolen source code. What happens if the student actually did on their own arrive at the algorithm that was a close enough match that the AI usage detection tool gives a false positive and says the student stole it? If the students provided me with a literate program explaining his thought process, then either we know he completely came up with it on his own, or at least he understood the result of that AI query enough to be able to replicate it and understand the underlying concepts, which is really what we care about more than anything. So that's sort of my thought on the subject.
Yeah, I agree with you in principle, Peter. Maybe I don't come at it from literate programming, but as you all know with the mapping and author, that's what we're trying to do, to let the teacher look at how the things are expressly connected. Jerry is of course much more advanced than me when it comes to graphing, and so there should be different ways depending on the student's interest, ability and relevance to the work at hand to make things explicit, because a lot can be hidden in a gray paragraph of text, that's for sure.
Sorry, sorry for that interrupt. I really need to go, but in your YouTube recommendation, there was the big announcement of Wolfram combining it. If you haven't watched it, please watch it. It's really amazing. So
yeah, I follow him on Facebook as well, so he's very good at communicating what he's
but
doing.
it's in your list of next videos to watch. So,
yeah.
So you find it. And thank you very much. It was an amazing event. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was very good, and thank you for coming. And we're way over time.
Yeah.
And
okay.
yeah,
I got to go now. Sorry.
Yeah. See you later, Jerry.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Did the rest of you get my email draft for the next event?
I got the email about no future events.
And also, it's also a draft for the 20th.
Not yet.
It's the same email.
Oh, sorry. I've got the one saying no future text sessions until the 17th of April.
Yeah, that's the subject. You have to open it.
Well, I was just saying, had you got something? So that's it. I haven't read the whole thing yet because it's not to
Okay.
read.
But are there any specific thoughts on how to hold that event? You don't need to answer me now. If you want to answer later today, that's fine. I plan to email it much later. Also, May 3rd, Fabienne, for demo day. What do you think?
Yeah, I've seen that. I need to double check my calendars, but in theory, yes.
It's coming up so soon.
To be honest, I'm not happy with the online part so much, and how few people we would be. So I'm not sure how we would not get as much as I would hope. But maybe we're going to find a way to make it work anyway. Plus, we iterate, so that's fine.
I'm totally happy for it to be in person as well. No question about that. And also, we need. Yeah. By the way, Peter, when you change your mind about the headset, let me send it to you. We do need to try having a few virtual meetings, guys. We cannot wait for Apples just to come out at the end of the year. It's going to be super expensive. It's going to be interesting, but it's going to be apparently very focused on co-presence, and that's it, rather than doing the kind of stuff that you've been doing, Fabian.
Well,
we are sorry. Just it's literally on this and the demo day. I gave a workshop to kids on Saturday. Went great, not perfect, but and for this I prepared like asymmetric collaboration, so one person on laptop or mobile and the other in VR. And this I made it scalable so that we could have, for example, here we could do 2 or 3 sessions at once, one in headset, one in desktop. So we could do it also with Zoom for the voice if we want, or otherwise. But it's nearly ready for us to do it through my kind of tools, which is weird, I know, but I also worked on the pedagogical aspect because, again, it was for kids. So I want to nearly promise that not only I'm up for doing a session in VR, but also an inclusive session that wouldn't force everybody to be in VR. And working on the infrastructure for that.
Makes this really good.
I was just going to suggest that if we're going to do a thing like that, I would suggest almost having a sort of either a pre-session or add more time than you think to get everyone in, because no matter people who are used to basically meeting within a system will be familiar with all the bits. Anybody who isn't doing it almost daily will take a lot longer. I mean, I think that's a lesson with any tech. So it might be that to make a meeting worthwhile, we almost have a practice meeting where we just ascertain that everyone's able to get to where they need to be, and maybe then just sort of stop at that. So the next time you actually turn up and you don't spend the first half hour saying, hello, is there anyone there? And finding, everyone else is in the room next door, sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, just look at my calendar. What is this? Okay, I have to.
I'm conscious it sounds like time wasted, but I don't think it is. It actually gets you to the point that when you have the actual meeting, then everyone's ready to go.
Oh, Peter's saying Tuesday.
No, that makes sense.
So we're thinking of changing many things at the same time here. The time slot of the meeting from Mondays is Wednesdays maybe good, Tuesdays may not be good for everyone.
I have at the moment is it? No, it's Thursday. Sorry, I've got a book project I'm working on, but I'm just about to start working on a project at the university. And I don't yet know what their on-site days are. So that's going to make it quite difficult for me doing end of day stuff, because probably I'll be on the motorway when we're meeting. But
sorry, when is difficult, Mark?
Well, I just won't know because, well, actually doing it at the university will be difficult. Just trying to find somewhere that, you know, you're not being interrupted by everybody will be hard. So basically, if I'm not back on those days, it may be more difficult, but, you know, that's just as it is. And I don't want to derail. I mean, choose a time that's best for most people. And I'll work around that.
So here's another thing in terms of the VR meetings. Obviously, our Californian friends are au fait, or whatever it's called, with that stuff. Maybe we can do an attempt next Monday or the one after where we do it in a different time. If Europeans can accommodate that, and maybe Peter, if you would like to try to join as well. If we just do it quite a bit earlier due to Japan timing. Do you want to try that? Because I probably will take my headset anyway. Just use it as an excuse. Fabian and Mark.
Well, for what it's worth, so Monday afternoons, I don't have anything sort of fixed at present.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if it's doing it, you know, a few hours earlier, I normally have a call late morning, but apart from that, you know, sort of basically my time's not blocked out to anything else. So and you know, in the sense of it helps move things forward because having made the suggestion, I'm happy to put the time in to get to the level of practice that we can all just sort of do fruitful work together at a timely plan.
Right. No, that's good. Sorry, Emily's just pinging me because, as you know, we had a family stay with us. Half of them have moved out and they've actually invited us for dinner. So we've got to go.
Oh.
That's going to be an experience. So, Fabienne, are you up for trying a VR meeting on a Monday? And if so, what system should we use to meet in?
Yes, Monday works. Basically, Monday and Friday, I don't work for the parliament, so logistic-wise, way easier, otherwise trickier, but feasible. So Mondays for me, basically, is best. In terms of I think doing it asymmetrically is more inclusive. We can be using just either Quest 2 or Quest Pro. If we want to do with something that already exists, can be Mozilla Hubs also. This way we focus on just using. And then indeed we can make it maybe doing it just with hubs for a start, or if we find a better or easier to set up solution, and then we do it with people who already know a bit as a way to document it and better be able to invite people who are less able to.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I also think we should try the Meta Horizon Workroom because it is really optimized for meeting. I'm not saying we should use it often, but it's ridiculously impressive in one way. So I think it'll be an interesting thing for us to have gone through together and talk about it while we're there. So
yeah, as long as we do something, I think it's good. And we can also have a list of the next tools we could use, get inspired from, and go through that.
Yeah.
So the time in London now is a little past 6, and in Tokyo it's a little past 2. So that means it's 8 hours ahead. God. And Cupertino is, I guess, 8 hours behind. So in order for us to have could we do 9 o'clock my time, meaning 1 o'clock on Monday, your time?
So that would be what, 2 p.m. continental?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, I'm just conscious that the thing that I'm basically waiting for someone to I've been taken off this project and they were just waiting for the bureaucracy to sort of start. Annoyingly, apparently their on-site day is Monday, which struck me as a somewhat odd choice, but it is what it is. I'll negotiate that when I find out more detail.
Okay.
But for now, it makes sense.
So, okay, fantastic. Well, let's just try that. Even if it ends up being a 15-minute disaster, at least we made the effort, right?
Yeah. For my part, it would. One of the things that I know I struggle's the wrong word, but unfamiliar with, in the sense of the problem of getting in and out. It's not putting the headset on, it's actually then finding all the stuff in there, because it's in effect, you know, I have none of my shortcuts. I sort of don't know where anything is, and you're back to sort of, you know, typing it. So it's just, that's the other thing to think about. So which things we almost,
Mark.
if there's any, I suppose what I'm saying, if there's anything that I can sort of pre-stage or pre-try, so that I, you know, it's reasonably to hand digitally inside the space.
Get yourself an account in Horizons Workroom. And Mozilla Hubs works anyway, because that's web-based.
Yeah.
And Mark, I think you just gave Apple their business plan. I think the fact that they probably will solve that specific issue of where do we meet will be why, despite everything, it will be a success for them.
Yeah, probably.
That's a big discussion. I got to go, and I'm keeping you guys as well. Edgar got his first iPad today, by the way, because I had to upgrade my phone, mostly for the video for Japan.
Yeah.
I gave my old one back and said, oh, £100 difference. He could have an iPad. He had an old one from us that was being worn out. So now he's got his own iPad. It's exciting. All right. Love you guys. Let's hope for next Monday, but not too much pressure, please, if it works.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Safe travels. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.